Hello, welcome back. Apparently I haven't scared you all away. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. Have I got some interesting stuff to share with you? All right. Yesterday we did a little bit of talk about financial stuff. Today we're going to talk about the psychology. The psychology that is the very reason you are a prepper. Why you are storing food and water. Right? Why you have specialized concepts about shelter and clothing. Why you've decided you need certain medicines on hand. Right? Why you need self-defense items. As a prepper, you have a plan. So let's talk about why and how we kind of got here. Right? Is it because we're naturally suspicious? That we like crazy kook stories? That we want to spend all of our time worrying? I don't think it's any of those things. I think that we are in an unusual category of people because we are a very small percentage of the overall population as preppers. But I believe it's because we have a unique perspective. We can see patterns in things. We instinctively know something isn't quite right. Is it the aggregate amount of information we've stored from movies and different forms of media? Or, or did we just get lucky and you just happen to wake up? Oh, by the way, I'm having a scotch, so, look out. 21-year-old Glen Farkless, a very distinct single malt. All right, so I want to talk about the way we think as preppers. We think a certain way. We have our ideas. It's because of the psychology of our individual minds. And it also has to do with the psychology of what's going on in the world. Right? So, let's look at how information is presented to us as people, as human beings in the 21st century, right? Now, I'm going to show you this. We'll see if we can get some citations down below, but for the most part, I'm going to tell you if you want more information on this, where to find it. You can go get it yourself. Again, I'm not bringing out top secret stuff. I'm bringing out regular, everyday available information, right? But the psychology behind how people think and why preppers are different. It'll help you understand yourself. It's going to help you understand the people out there on the other side of your front door. When shit hits the fan, it's going to help you understand why they think the way they do. All right? So, we're going to step back in the Wayback Machine, right? A time machine. We're going to go back to Nazi Germany. This is censorship in Germany from Wikipedia. And we're just going to skip to World War II. Nazi Germany, that is. Right? Because everyone knows the Nazis were bad guys. Right? They were Nazis. They had Hitler. They were awful people. So, who better to start with? Who better to pick on than the Nazis? Right? Censorship in Nazi Germany was extreme. It was implemented by the Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels. All media, literature, music, newspapers, and public events were censored. Attempts were also made to censor private communications, such as mail, and even private conversation, with mixed results. Right? The aim of the censorship was simple: reinforce Nazi power and suppress opposing viewpoints and information. Right? They wanted to control people's minds. Mind control. That's what this was about in Nazi Germany. They wanted to control everything, including mail. Today, email, political correctness. They want to control speech today, control thought through everything. Music, literature, newspapers, all forms of media, and even public events. Right? Now, they were at least honest about it. Dr. Joseph Goebbels was the Minister of Propaganda. Propaganda is state-sponsored perspectives. You could call them lies, right? But what did they do? How did they do it? Well, stuff was removed. It was criminalized. There were executions. Basically, government terror. Government terror and threats changed things. And when people only had the Minister of Propaganda's approved message, what began to happen in Germany? They controlled the minds of the people, right? Like the people on the other side of your door that are not preppers. They think a different way. The German people turned from a regular people, industrious though they were, into the Nazis, the Nazi party. Now, the whole country, of course, wasn't Nazi. The whole country didn't participate in roasting Jews, right? But people go, how could Germany fall for that? How could they buy into that? Well, they had no other information except that from the Minister of Propaganda. Want to read about censorship in Nazi Germany? Just read about censorship in Germany. Read about it. Get an idea. How did they control their minds? And then you can see, with that beautiful hindsight of 2020, the effect of censorship. The control of the mind and the destruction that it wrought. Now, those are Nazis, the far right-wing lunatics. Well, how about the left? The communists? So I brought to you censorship in the Soviet Union via Wikipedia. Soviets, actually worse, they actually killed more people. More people than Nazis. Instead of just, 6, 5, I don't know how many millions the Nazis killed. The fucking Soviets killed like 25 million or 45 million. It was huge. No one knows the truth anymore. Nobody knows because there's so much... what would you call it? History revisionism, right? They rewrite history on us, left and right, so that we believe and we only hear what our government is telling us. And special interest groups telling you, well, when I was a kid, it was like a million Jews or 2 million or 3 million, and it got up to 4 and then 6. And, now it's, in a lot of cases, they're saying more Jews were killed by the Nazis than there were alive at the time in Europe. It's interesting, right? It's mind control. And once they control the mind, right, the ass follows where that mind takes it. All right, so let's take a look at history, Soviet history, and their mind control. How did they get people to think the way they wanted? Well, they had a newspaper. It's called Pravda. Means truth, right? And that was their media, newspapers. All media in the Soviet Union were controlled by state, including television and radio, newspaper, magazine, book publishing. It also covered music, theater, everything. This was achieved by state ownership of all production facilities, thus making all those employed in media state employees. In other words, communist employees. In other words, government employees. Books which met with official favor, for example, the collected speeches of Leonid Brezhnev, he was one of their premiers, was printed in vast quantities, while less favored literary material might be published in limited numbers and not widely distributed. That sounds a lot like YouTube, right? If you don't meet their approval, guess what? Only in limited numbers will people be able to find you, if at all. Right? You can probably see where I'm going. Jamming of foreign radio stations. In the Soviet Union, they had massive jamming stations. It was the most powerful in the world to make sure no other broadcasts got into the Soviet Union. Right? Censorship, control of information. When you remove everyone else's information, you start to control the mind. It is not just censorship. It's mind control. Why aren't there more preppers? Why? They are all suffering from mind control out there. They're only hearing state-sponsored news. Let's move on. Well, is the U.S., right? Obviously, is the U.S. immune to such a thing? Of course not, right? CIA influence on public opinion. Once again, Wikipedia, you can go there. You know, no country, no rightly run country would ever not want its own opinion, the government's, out there. Why would they leave that on the table? Right? Why trust people to come to the right conclusion when you can give them the right conclusion? Right? So let's talk about CIA and mass media here in the United States. The CIA, right, has made use of mass media for covert operations. Covert. Right? At least in Russia and Germany back in World War II, you knew Pravda came from the Politburo. You knew that the German material came from the desk of Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda. In the United States, though, the CIA used covert, that is, secret, hidden hand techniques. In 1973, the Washington Star News reported the CIA had enlisted Americans working abroad and as journalists, right? Ordered by the CIA Director William Colby. Then there were congressional investigations in the 70s. The most extensive discussion of CIA relations with news media from the investigations is in the Church's Committee. Church Committee's final report, published in April of 76. The CIA maintains a network who provide intelligence for the CIA and attempt to influence opinion, that is, of the American people. That is, those people on the other side of the door that are not preppers. Convince them through the use of covert propaganda. Once again, covert. Not outside the U.S. The CIA is chartered to work outside the U.S. What the fuck are they doing inside the U.S.? This is back in 1976, right? These individuals provide the CIA with access to large numbers of newspaper organizations, press services like the Associated Press, Reuters, news agencies, radio and television communications, book publishers, and other media outlets. Approximately, and this is in 1976, approximately 50 of the individual Americans who were journalists or employees of the U.S. media, right, were working for the CIA. More than a dozen U.S. news organizations and commercial forms of media provided cover for CIA agents, right? What about advertising? What about marketing? What about dabbling in financial markets? We'll get back to that. The CIA, and this is again in the 70s. We've gone through the 80s, the 90s, the aughts, and here we are in the late teens. 40 plus years since this came out. The CIA is here covertly operating behind the scenes, providing information. Right? In 2012, Tricia Jenkins released a book, The CIA in Hollywood, How the Agency Shapes Film and Television. The CIA efforts are for the purpose of manipulating its public image. Assistance in entertainment. The CIA named Chase Brandon. He was assigned to Hollywood. His film credits include The Recruit, The Sum of All Fears, Enemy of the State, In the Company of Spies. Television shows like The Agency, JAG, Alias. Okay, but he would not endorse a movie like Spy Game, which was Robert Redford and Brad Pitt. The final rewrite showed CIA senior management in an insensitive light. And we don't want to be a part of that kind of project, says the CIA. Right? They also had a lot to do with Patriot Games and The Recruit. So what we're learning here is the CIA not only dabbles in information, they dabble in information that tells us about them and how they dabble in information. Right? So what does this boil down to? Who do you believe? Who do you believe when you get information? Governments have always wanted to control the way people think. So they stop their speech. They stop our ability to hear other people's opinions. They want you to think the way they think. And if they can limit the amount of information you get, limit it, then you can draw fewer conclusions about the information about the bigger world. Because you only know this much. Right? And that's really, on the other side of that door, the way people are. They have very small, contained amounts of information. And they don't want to hear anymore. Da la la la, right? They don't want to fucking hear it. They don't want to hear that a 47-story skyscraper collapsed for no reason in New York City. Nobody knows that. Just people like us, people that are paying attention. Don't think for yourself is what the government says to you. Listen to mass media. Listen to the internet, if they approve it, right? Only read their publications. Only believe stuff that doesn't make you sound like a kook, right? They don't want you to think for yourself. They want to draw a conclusion for you. And they do that by crafting a story around the information they have. Now, here's what I have for you. Here's where I'm going to draw a line and I'm going to step on the other side of it. Good scotch. Okay. I tell you, don't believe me. I tell you, do your own research. Read this yourself. I tell you, this is my opinion. What do you think? Look into it yourself. Come to your own conclusions. I tell you, in my world, the world of John, I'm an expert. In your world, I am not. You are the expert in your world. Think for yourself. I just want to share my perspectives, my ideas, my information, my concepts, and you can choose it or not choose it. You can decide if it's valuable, if it's valid. Right? I don't want anyone making a decision based on the things I say. I want them to make decisions based on what they think, what you think. Right? I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's not my job. But it is my job, because of my personality, who I am, to share with everyone my information. Okay? So, there being the caveat, right? I'm not just going to sit here on my couch, arms folded, and say, nah, you go do your own damn work. I'm not going to do any thinking for you. Where's the fun in that, right? So you come here, you get some entertainment, you get some information, and then you get turned loose. Think what you want, right? So, what we've seen is governments control the information we have. Governments give us the information they want us to have. Governments keep us from getting information they don't want. Governments in the past have been honest about it. The government we have today is not. It's covert. And it's been that way a long time. They've got their fingers in everything. Books, television, yes, the internet. And I'm going there. Who funded and was responsible, in large part or not, for Facebook? The CIA. How about Google? The CIA. Which means YouTube is CIA. Central Intelligence Agency. The government's covert wing that has domestic activities related to the covert suppression and support of certain types of information and opinions. And it should not be surprising that the psychology, how we think, of how this works, hasn't been moved into other realms. Why should it stay just in popular movies and television? Why should their skills at manipulation and control, speaking of the CIA, remain only inside media? Why not be inside other technologies? Well, they do. The CIA actually has divisions within itself, departments, if you will, that spend money, fund, grant seed money to developing new technologies in other areas other than just entertainment, other than just information. Google was an example of that. creating algorithms and computer programs designed to take over the internet. iYahoo.com. I Yahoo because it's funny, and I Yahoo because I don't want to let Google tell me what I can and can't find. So this article here was sent to me by Chris in Chicago. Hey Chris, you rock, brother. All right, it's a Zero Hedge article. Here it is. Pause the frame, write it down or type it in, and you can go look at it yourself. I had to print it off through another program, so this is going to look different than what you see on your screen. YouTube, subsidiary corporation of Google, subsidiary and created by CIA, funded by CIA, seeded by CIA. YouTube hires 10,000 staff to weed out extremist content. Right? Google has announced the latest escalation in the battle to censor extremist content on its platforms. The company plans to hire 10,000 whose sole job will be tracking down extremist content. What they don't want, according to Susan Wojcicki, I can't say her name, I'm not making fun of her, Wojcicki, she said that bad actors had used the video sharing site, YouTube, to mislead, manipulate, harass, and even harm others. Now, if you're the government, CIA, and its controlled media, would you say that they've misled us as the American people? Would you say that they've manipulated us by giving us false information or only a piece of the story? Would you say that they actually harass us out here? I would call what they do to us harassment. I even go so far as to call it terror. We are psychologically terrorized by the media, by the government that controls the media. And even harm. When you are told that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction and that we have to go to war in Iraq, and soldiers and Marines and airmen and sailors go over there and are killed or shot, fortune, treasure was spent doing this. Yeah, we were harmed. We were hurt. People, individuals were hurt. Groups were hurt. The country was hurt. Crazy. Yeah, that's this misleading manipulation is exactly what politicians do to us. It's what the CIA does. Why use guns and bullets when you can turn people into mental midgets, robots, running on a very small amount of information known as a program? All right? So Google is presently developing an algorithm to automate most of the job. Right? For terror, supposedly. But who is that applied to? The technology can be used to weed out other appropriate videos. And then they go on to cite how we need to protect the children. Why? Because children's minds are young and fertile. You plant the seed in a child's mind, by the time they grow up, they're a different person. As preppers, we think differently. At some point along the way, we didn't drink the magic Kool-Aid. We thought for ourselves. A lot of it has to do with our personality. Our base personality type. Our nature versus the nurture of mass propaganda and manipulation. Back in August, and that was just a couple months ago, YouTube announced it would be taking steps to censor content that they found to be controversial, even if it did not break any laws or violate the site's user agreement. So even if someone doesn't violate their rules, they still want to take steps to censor the content. Yikes! The site, YouTube, even censored former Congressman Ron Paul, former presidential candidate Ron Paul. No one's immune. What I'm getting at here is the internet. This is how we're speaking and talking right now, communicating, passing information on. Has been a marvelous tool It's allowed me, a guy who believes in truth and justice, a guy who wants you to have all the information, right? Just like I say, Wall Street is not a free-for-all. You go to Wall Street to make money, you're not taking Jamie Dimon's money. You're not taking Alan Greenspan's money. You're not taking JP Morgan's money. You're not taking Bank of America's money. You're taking the money from other people like you, right? I'm going to tell you that because then you can decide, okay, how do I want to approach the concept of Wall Street from now on? It's a casino that you're told is a bank, right? Just one example of how we think and where we're going. Now, I want to stop here and say Google, YouTube, the internet is being taken over and gobbled up by these huge computer machines that control algorithms and hide stuff they don't like and promote stuff they do. Believe this story, read here. And I'm not talking about stopping stories on the National Enquirer that aren't true, like Bat Boy. You know, where's he at today? Who cares? That's tripe that can stay out there. They don't want an alternative pravda. They don't want an alternative truth, idea, concept, perspective. They don't want that out there for you. So what I'm going to ask is that you consider the idea, the very part of your brain that said, you know, I should be a prepper. I should look into prepping. Or I think that shit could hit the fan. I could see a collapse coming. I could see a total change. That part of your brain is what I ask everyone to engage. It is the thinking part of the brain that says, I don't trust the information. I see where we're going. They're trying to control that with Google because that's people Google this and Google that. If you want to learn from a video, you go to YouTube, right? But they're killing that. This is why I'm so fucking mad, right? I've taken down to 5,000 views a day from 50 to 100. That's 90 to 95% censored. And that's just a couple months after this August announcement. They're still developing their algorithms. They're going to find a way to get rid of me. But because, like you, I foresaw the future, I saw what was coming, I saw the writing on the wall, right? I wanted to get ahead of the curve and go to Patreon. And by the way, a little housekeeping here. Yeah, the videos right now are stored at another place on YouTube. I have demonetized them here with my regular content, and I'm actually having them store and supply the bandwidth for us to watch it. Yeah, they're going to pay. They're paying. And if they try shutting that down, guess what? I just go to Vimeo. I just go to Dailymotion. I just host it myself. You know, it's all fun and games until you piss people off and they wake up. You guys have woken up, and I'm glad you're here with me. Okay, so we need other forms of internet access. They keep trying to do what? Net neutrality or get rid of net neutrality. Whatever it is, it's not good for us. Nothing the government, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, mainstream media do is good or beneficial for us as people, and especially us as preppers. They just aren't looking out for our best interest. I like to say that I'm looking out for everyone's best interest, but I still tell you, think for yourself. Think for yourself. So, how do we get out of this mess we're in? Well, interestingly, the preparedmind.club, where you can go to get your food, water, shelter, medicine, clothing, means of self-defense, all that stuff there, and a plan, and a forum, and a Prepper Connect, where you can meet other preppers for building prepper groups. All the things we supply there are different. And we're now, and have been for a while now, affiliated with the Commodity Ad Network, which was designed and intended to battle against this censorship that's coming out. They're in the process of creating a free, you can call it alternative media, system. They're going to want to compete with Google. They're going to want to compete with these other media sources, including funding of it through ads and revenue. So it's just an interesting aside. People are working on it. Good people, smart people, hardworking people like you. So the Commodity Ad Network, stuff like that, it's coming. there is going to be a battle royale, and basically the only way to stop us is if they come out and take control of everything absolutely and criminalize, literally criminalize anyone else's opinion. And speaking of criminalizing everyone else's opinion, I'm starting to think the CIA developed Bitcoin. But I still love it, says the dollar vigilante. Bitcoin, I still love it, right? There is a ton of information, and I'm not going to go over it, but this is just one article. 13 pages from dollarvigilante.com. There are many written papers now. In fact, there are a ton of videos if you just want to go to YouTube. Look up Bitcoin CIA, and it'll come up right there. There's a lot of information that suggests that the CIA started Bitcoin. They work behind the scenes covertly on all of your information. They even develop systems to control how you perceive their image. They're the good guys that are covertly controlling you, controlling the information you get, controlling the way we think. Now, it's come out. There's evidence. And maybe it's only anecdotal, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's good evidence that's out there that says the CIA is engaged in how you perceive, at the very least, Bitcoin. And maybe use their technology, their seed money, to create this technology, this next step in the economic move. The system's already coming down on the one side, but what replaces it? Right? Hegalian dialect is to create an emergency and then offer the solution. It's also known as problem reaction solution, popularized by many speakers today. But it's Hegalian dialect. They are going to create a problem, then they're going to offer the solution. A lot of people say many times the solution is far worse than the problem. But that's okay. You know, I think there's a lot of things going on. I think the CIA is heavily involved in it. I think they are the covert wing of the government, and the government is controlled by the powers that be. And speaking of the powers that be, right now, Bitcoin, just today in the last 24 hours, has gone up $1,900. I'm going to put in here, because right before I filmed this or started, I took a screenshot of Bitcoin and where it's at today. It is going up, right? Up, however you want to look at that curve. It is vertically climbing. Look at the last year. Click 1 year on Bitcoin and you'll see how it travels, and it just goes up. Right, okay. So, our perception of Bitcoin is controlled by the CIA, and the CIA works for their bosses, the power elite, military-industrial complex, if you will. Now, they kept saying, how do you control Bitcoin? It can't be done. It can't be done. Well, the price right now is going vertical. This is doing a couple of things. It is bringing it to everyone's attention. You cannot be unaware of Bitcoin at this point. The price has gone up over 1,000% this year so far. 1,500% almost. It's just skyrocketing. Now, how can they control it? How could they crash it? Well, the powers that be, the very powerful, they know what placement orders people are putting in, right? If Bitcoin drops $100, buy it, and then we'll ride it to the next wave up. If, let's just say, the powerful people control half of it, or 3/4 of it, all they have to do is wait till everyone out there puts in their buy orders, and they see there's enough buy orders that they could sell their stock, their ownership in it, and tank the price. They can do it intentionally whenever they want, when they own enough of it, and there's enough mania, enough hysteria, enough excitement, enthusiasm for people to buy it. Don't get left behind. They're controlling the minds of investors on the other side of your door right now. They're in people's heads. You're a prepper. You're sitting there going, yeah, I got my food, got my water, got my shelter, got my clothing, got my medicine, got my gun, and a plan. I'm good. Other people are sitting on their couch biting their fucking nails going, man, I should have bought Bitcoin last week, 2 weeks ago. right? And they are putting their money out there. Now, why would they do this? Number one, it makes them a bunch of money. If they sell off, right? And actually, there's some understanding that, let me read this guy's name. Satoshi Nakamoto is credited with being the guy who invented Bitcoin, blockchain technology. A lot of people think that Craig Stephen Wright is actually the guy who really, used the other guy. And a lot of people say that wasn't him. Doesn't matter. What is understood is that like 75% of Bitcoin, if I remember this correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, is held in trust secretly by this Nakamoto guy. And that means they control, if it's a CIA corporation, a CIA-funded operation, to get people to understand that while our market's crashing, here comes a replacement idea. They can dump all of their Bitcoin and drive the price down, make a shit pile of money, and then what? You say, John, then what, right? Well, first the money went down, now they've taken down Bitcoin. Well, everyone is just raving about blockchain technology, how good it is, how bulletproof it is, how anonymous it is. Wait a minute. How broken, unbreakable it is. Well, actually, it's been hacked and stolen. The blockchain's been hacked and stolen. It is not anonymous. If you break the law, the government comes and puts bracelets on you. Shiny stainless steel bracelets that make you go like this. They arrest you. They try you. They throw your ass in prison. It is not anonymous. It is not unbreakable. And there's a good chance it was started by the CIA to make a lot of money, to change the way people think. Once again, this is about how you think. Why do you believe what you believe and they out there believe what they believe? It's because of the information you're provided. And if you accept it at face value and don't question it, they own your mind. And where your mind goes, your ass follows. You've got to think for yourself. Don't believe me, but think for yourself and look at this and say, where's the fucking hook? Where's the catch? And I've talked about this a little in the past. The government will never, ever, ever give up control of its asset, its most important asset, which is control of the financial system, which is what controls everything else. He who has the gold makes the rules. He who has the rules rules it all. They will control the next step. The advent of whatever they want to call it. The Fed coin. The SDR. Right? Whatever it is. The reserve currency of the world. Right now everyone is on board going with cryptocurrency. Completely cashless, based on nothing, and a perceived value that everyone can't get enough of. People are running out there to get this stuff. They're excited even if they can't afford it. There is a new cashless system coming. And whether it retains the name Bitcoin or not, it does not matter. It's the way the mind is controlled. They can bring everyone to their knees and then have them buy into whatever story they feed us next. It is Hegalian dialect. Create a crisis, offer the solution, maintain control, control their minds, control their bodies, control everything. As preppers, we are immune to that. To the degree our competency and intelligence allows us to question and come to alternative conclusions that use all the pieces of the puzzle, all of them, to the best of our ability. We're not perfect. I'm certainly not perfect, right? I've tried not tripping on my words tonight, so hopefully there aren't any outtakes on this video. Got to keep the gears lubricated. That way I can walk and chew bubble gum. It's about your control. And you, I'm telling you right now, are in a perfect position. The best position to be in, which is using your own mind as you see fit, and accepting or discounting information based on your own intellect. Don't believe me, don't believe anyone else, believe yourself. Search out the information. Verify it for authenticity. Do your best, because that's all we can do. And always, always be prepared. Because there's another thing that history teaches us besides those who have the gold make the rules. The other lesson of history is that shit will always hit the fan, because it always has. All of this is going to come to an end. As surely as the sun rises and sets tomorrow. Rise in the east, set in the west, just like every day. This story in history, this chapter is going to end and another chapter is going to start. There's a starting and then an ending. And right in between, there's this space. It's called Armageddon, or the apocalypse. The end of the world as we know it, or shit hitting the fan. Right? It's that rough gap between civilizations or political paradigms. You know, so that's where we're at. It's about controlling your mind, right? So how do we avoid that, right? Chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours, right? You guys have a great day. More to come. Always more to come. Godspeed to you all. Semper Fi. And look out. It's going to be a wild Hegalian roller coaster. You guys be cool.
Playtime is over. Get your Prepared Mind merchandise at thepreparedmind.club. Help keep free speech free and spread the word about the need to prep.